Hey everyone, good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. This is Masterclass 3 from All Things SaaS. And we have with us Aishwarya Ashok, uh, who's a product manager at Zoho. But that is kind of underselling whatever she does, to be honest, because there is so much more that she has been doing and she continues to do. But for the sake of the masterclass here, Aishwarya is an amazing product person, and she's been part of Zoho for quite some time now, 4+ years, if I'm not mistaken. And I met Aishwarya on Twitter, I want to say, about a year and a half back. And since then, like a lot of people, I've been absolutely impressed with simply her knowledge on the product, tech, and SaaS space in general. Right? So there are a lot of people who are in product management, and anybody who has been following this space recently will know that it has kind of become the new investment banking, right? So where everybody wants to jump into product management, not because they love the space, but because that seems like the next big thing to go after, right? So amongst all of that, we have someone like Aishwarya, who's genuinely passionate about this space, right? She's probably one of the most passionate product people that I know. And whatever she does at work, whatever side projects that she does, and she's done a couple of really good ones as well, which we shared in our group. Just for context here, I think just earlier this year, she built something called One Good Thing, which is a no-code app that Aishwarya built herself, which basically helps anyone distract ourselves from the monotonous schedule we find ourselves in during the pandemic, right? So there have been a lot of phases during this time when we have all been locked up at home, and we really wanted something refreshing, right? Something that was not really planned, something spontaneous, right? And One Good Thing app was just that. We already shared the links. Do check it out. So the premise is basically you open the app and you'll find the most random thing that will make you happy, right? Something like you'll open the app and say, why don't you, try playing around with bubble wraps today, right? So that's something that we are all happy. And there is like a huge collection of them. And that's something like was a big hit and everybody loved it and for the right reasons. So that is one side project she does. And she's host of something called TheProdcast, which is, again, a really popular podcast for product people in the Indian startup ecosystem, which she does with her friends, Srinidhi, and I think Padmini Janaki was also part of that initiative. In fact, I think that's how I came across Aishwarya for the first time as well. So whatever, for people who know me outside of All Things SaaS, I also run a podcast called The Takeaway Club. And the first person I messaged when I thought of doing something on those lines is Aishwarya's co-founder Srinidhi, and eventually I got to know Aishwarya as well. And since then, I think in one of the very first conversation, Aishwarya just said, feel free to drop me a message if you need any help, right? And since then, I've continued to absolutely take advantage of whatever she said. And time and again, I've reached out to her for all things product, basically, right? So all of this is just to set the context that she's not really your average product manager who sees it as a job, right? So she's someone who really loves the craft of building and scaling world-class products, and she does it at Zoho, right? So there are a few better places to go about doing that. So we felt, I think Aishwarya was the first person we reached out when we said we wanted to do something like a masterclass, right? And there are a couple of schedule constraints because of only which that she comes in third. But she actually helped put together a lot of ideas when Mukil and I went to her saying we want to do something like this for All Things SaaS. And I reached out to her for advice on All Things SaaS, on podcasts, on Twitter and whatnot. I think now I'll leave the floor to Aishwarya to introduce herself.
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot, Krishna. I think that is like the most comprehensive introduction somebody could have. And he's been too kind in putting a lot of, like she's the best and all of that. And I'm so glad to be helping with whatever I've learned. I'm super happy to be talking to folks. And that's something that I find is, energy giving. I love speaking to folks about product, and I love learning from each other. So, with Krishna, it was pretty much like that. We connected, and then he used to ask questions, and then and he's been super subtle about Takeaway Club, his podcast, which I should say that he's hosted a lot of great guests. So you guys should definitely check that out. So yeah, thanks a lot for that introduction. And yeah, like he said, I have been with Zoho for the last 5 years now. And I started with product marketing, and honestly, that's the best base that I could ever ask for, because being a part of Zoho and being in a team that actually had some space for me to explore. When I was doing product marketing, I eventually was a person who was interested in holistic products. So I liked to take customer support calls. I liked sitting with the product management folks. I liked taking live support chat. So I kind of explored, and that's when I understood that anything about product building was pretty exciting to me. And I was fortunate and lucky enough to transition to product management that helped me like shape building products, and that helped me understand my passion lies somewhere in combining some of my product marketing based with what I could do in building products. So that's like in a nutshell of what I do at Zoho. And yeah, the rest, like Krishna said, are some of my side projects. Happy to chat with any of you here to like any questions that you may have with both product and otherwise. But yeah, I leave it to all of you now to start the session.
Okay. Thanks, Aishwarya. I think that certainly helped. So I think we'll start off with a question that Varsha had. So, do you want to go ahead and ask it to begin the session, Varsha?
Yeah, sure. So like, how was your transition from product marketing to product management? Since product management involves the tech part of the product also. Like with product marketing, we'll be involved in marketing and few of the data, but in the product management, it involves the tech. And like, did you have a prior experience with tech, or like how was your transition from?
Okay. Okay, that's a great question. So, see, honestly, with product management, the tech part of what you say, of course, you need to have a background in terms of understanding what does the tech space calls for. For example, when you work for a product, you should be able to understand what tech does it involve. And like you rightly said, being in product marketing requires you to coordinate with a couple of stakeholders. And when it comes to product management, that broadens, because when you're in product management, the kind of stakeholders that you work with, along with marketing, it's also going to be your developers, your designers. And on this front, the nature of work that you have to deal with these stakeholders while you all work together is going to be slightly different. So when it was in, let's say it was product marketing. In product marketing, your thinking is more around customer facing aspects of it. So obviously, even in product management, you think about customers, but it's always what do you do in the product so that the customer could understand that. But in terms of product marketing, it's going to be this is the deliverable that I want to share with my customer. So this is what they have to see. So what do I ensure to do that they understand the product well? So this is a slight shift in mindset that you have with respect to both product marketing and product management. Coming to the tech part, I would say that product management, like I think Krishna gave a right introduction. A lot of them want to be as a part of product management, which is great, because this is a particularly a space and a role that's getting a lot of popularity, a lot of interest around, which is very good as long as you're passionate about it. Because when you're just wanting to enter into the role for the role's sake, because you feel it's fancy, or because you feel maybe it's where you get to like work with a lot of people, not in a good way, but more like you want to show autonomy. All of that is not going to really work, because the whole product management as a space is something that suits you only if you think you're a problem solving person. If you're excited genuinely about any part of the problem that your product is getting built for, and you love iterations, you love working for multiple hours on the same problem just to get the right solution out. You love wanting to build something that you feel like your customers would definitely have their benefit of. So these are some things that should drive your passion towards product management. And for the tech part of it, the tech really involves in you understanding, like I said, the stakeholders that you get to deal with would be, you would be working on a daily basis with your engineers, with your designers. So obviously when you talk to your engineers, you should be in a position to understand, let's say if there's a particular roadmap, what is getting delayed or what is getting completed on time. I think that is where your tech skills lie. Your tech skills lie in terms of talking things out with your developers, in terms of design knowledge, talking it with your designers, and trying to understand where the three of you can work on a particular solution to a particular problem. Because you wouldn't be coding directly, but that does not mean that you shouldn't understand what effort or what amount of knowledge goes into coding. So the tech here is all about understanding the effort. So when the engineer is probably saying that this particular thing could go to the backlog now because we don't have priority on it, or we don't have a particular effort that we could spend on it, you should be in a position to understand why. And it's not a know-it-all role, because when you start out, obviously, a lot of this depends on how you build rapport with folks who are in the engineering team and in the designing team. So this rapport gets you eventually. So a lot of, at least what I've learned after being in part of product management, is you don't have to have all the answers. It's not like somebody's walking up to you to say that, oh yeah, whatever answer you're going to give me is eventually what I would do. You would get to that point. I'm not saying that is not the role. You would eventually get to that point, but you can't be a know-it-all person at the start itself. So a lot of your start is building that rapport with them, understanding how your solutioning can actually be considering their constraints and their thinking as well. So I've grown to love a word called co-creation. So co-creation is something that's more important in product management, because as a product manager, if you think that, oh, what I do is what primary and what I say is what others will have to listen to me in the team, that is definitely not bringing out a good team culture and a good product building culture. So when you're thinking about a solution to the problem, you hit it off with your designers, you hit it off with your engineers to understand what amount of tech considerations would happen in this case, and what amount of design effort would take in this case. And that's how you're able to blend in a solution. So your solution is always going to be iterating. It's always going to be what is the best possible thing that we could do with the people that we have now at this instant. So that is how your thinking in product management would be. So it's neither about autonomy, it's neither about do what I say, or it's not about, oh, I do not know how to code. You don't need to code because that's not your everyday job. But you do need to understand what it takes when there's probably an issue, when there's probably a couple of bugs that your customers report. What happens when a particular build is not going into production? Why is it not going into? Because there is some delay. But why is this delay coming? What is the error with respect to this product functioning in a particular browser? All these little tech things, and even the tech debts that your team could have in terms of the architecture, all of this, as long as you're in a position to understand, I think that's what matters. I hope this answered some of your doubts around the question. Prashant?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aishwarya.
Yeah, feel free to let me know if there's any follow-up on that, or like any specifics on that.
Yeah, sure, will do.
Yeah, I think that was pretty brilliant, right? So a lot of what you say does make sense. So I think the first step is trying to navigate from the fanciness around product management and setting the context as to how serious and important a job it is. I think right off the bat, it was very good that we managed with that question. So does anybody have a follow-up on that, or the next question that anybody wants to ask?
In fact, just sorry to barge in, just to add on to what you were saying, Krishna, I think sometimes you would eventually start, this is another thing that I've always believed in. You don't have to initially have a role called product management for you to start thinking around that. Because to me, I've always considered product as a mindset. So what mindset you develop towards what you want to do in the product space is all that matters. I'm not saying that this, you don't have to get into that role, but what eventually takes you to that role and what eventually takes you to doing that in a team is the right mindset that you develop. So sometimes, so with respect to me, while I was doing product marketing, I used to think with the product management mindset. I used to think, for me, it was never about, should I have to think from a product designer mindset or a product manager's mindset or a product marketer's mindset? It's all about what best you can do to the product. So if your mindset can be around that and you eventually develop that as your habit thinking, then I guess you would apply a lot of these skills, whichever role that you're in, and that would take you to finding the right role eventually. So that's something that I would add as a plug there.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So even if you take my case, back when I was at my first job in Plenty, I was part of the marketing team there. And I was just as far away from the product team as you could be, right? Even for folks who have worked in typical startup offices, usually product engineering and design, they're all sitting together and marketing is pushed in some corner. Because in most cases, to be fair, you don't really need to have the day-to-day discussion on a more closer level, like how some of those teams would be. But even then, I used to keep thinking about, say, let's say a new feature is getting rolled in. Does this make sense as a customer? I don't really have to be a product manager to answer that question,
Exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
I'm someone who has spent zero time thinking about this feature. I don't have any context as to why you went about building this. But if I try to play around with it, will it make sense for my use case as a marketer? And I noticed that when I started doing that, eventually the so-called insights came up, right? Simply because I had that amateurish lens of looking at things. So I don't know what the product management tenets are or what the best practices in the space is. Right? So that's super helpful, Aishwarya.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Also, yeah, it's a lot about what you show, right? For example,
I think we have our youngest ever webinar attendee.
I was just wondering. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's so cool.
That's how fierce the competition for places in product management is.
I would rather call it product is because there are a lot of things that you can do in the product space. No, like I was just adding on to your point. For me, like you mentioned, it's a lot about what you also project, right? For example, let's say you're in a customer support role and you are somebody who gets to deal with customers day in, day out. You're somebody who talks to them. So obviously, when a particular feature is rolled out, it's not that only product management has got a say in it, right? It's always that you think from your lens in terms of, so this is my role with respect to taking this to the customer. What would I reverse engineer here? Think about the source of this whole feature. If I still think that this is something, and this comes from the whole product management, right? They when a particular feature is rolled out and everybody inside feels like, oh my God, what are we doing this? Why is this coming? This clearly shows that there's no co-creation that you have done with your teammates. There's basically no internal culture that you have inside your team where each of you build on each other's ideas. So I am a strong believer of that fact. So it's important that you find the right team and the right people that you work with. And it's important that you should take the fanciness of the role, because it's a lot of your everyday work is going to be talking to people, trying to understand their viewpoint. So if obviously you're going to be clogged about, no, my solution is what that has to go out, what I think should be the role, or rather what I propose should be the accepted idea, that's never going to go forward, because a lot of your ideas would be shaped by what somebody else in your team is going to say. It could be your peer who's also into product management. It could be your engineer who would probably tell you some constraints around building a particular feature. It could be a designer who tells you some visual aesthetics has to go different. So this is another part of being in product management is you have to be willing to talk to people and try to see what best you could do to the product, not what best idea you could bring forth. Of course, your idea would be made better with more people in communication and collaboration, but it's never about the you ego. It's always about what best you can do to the product.
Awesome. I think Balkrishna wanted to ask.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, actually, my question was, I think you kind of answered it just right now. My question was around that only, that what he said about marketing, like what takes precedence, marketing or product. One thing was that, and the other was product management is mostly about communication. So how do you manage that? And how much of, like you said that you want to collaborate with others and everything, but often the other engineers, they don't have the same context that you have as a product manager, because you have done the research and you have thought a lot about it. So how much of it is autocracy and how much of it is democracy? So that was my answer. And I think kind of you both answered those questions almost. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Also, just adding on a bit to the first question, thanks for both those questions. I think both those hit the right nails, because those are like pretty much the questions that people in turn have about, okay, what does a person in this role would do? And see, honestly, for me, I'm at a role now where I actually can do product management. I'm also taking care of the growth marketing of the product. So obviously, I'm somebody who believes in the fact that I can blend in both of my skills, which is both with the whole marketing around the product and the whole building of the product. So I can never emphasize on this is better than the other, because see, product marketing is something that every let's take a startup. Every founder should understand what product marketing entails. And in the recent times, I've always seen that a lot of product marketing and as a role doesn't really get much of its scope in startups or even in big companies. And that reason is predominantly because the founders themselves or the whole product VP of product or the whole product managers, the senior managers in the teams don't probably value or understand the scope of that role much enough. So, and there are also a lot of questions on, when should you hire the first product marketer in the team? When should you hire this person in the team, that person in the team? And it all boils down to, see, you can hire this person when you have a need, but when you cannot appreciate or acknowledge that there is this role and it is of equal importance, and this is something that I have thorough knowledge about. So let's say I'm a founder. If I'm going to bring in somebody for product marketing, I should either have an understanding of what product marketing is and what it could do to my product. B, I have to acknowledge the fact if it's not point A, the point B is I should acknowledge the fact that I do not know anything about product marketing, and I trust completely in the person who's going to take care of product marketing. If I don't have A or B, then I'm pretty much bringing somebody who's super talented onto the team and wasting their skills, because there is no collaboration that they can intend to. Like the question that you were asking, I'm trying to collaborate, but there is like people who are not, very deceptive, or I'm not able to reach to the team or the leads that I have in terms of discussing. I think this actually boils down to a bit of team culture, and this is a good thing is you can definitely change this. So sometimes I also feel, as much as somebody who has a lot of skills think that they're not being heard, it's also the steps that you take, right? It's also the steps that you take. What have you done to be heard? You can have skills, but if they don't see, it doesn't mean you shouldn't show. So there are steps that you can take probably. So let's say you are a product marketer who's wanting to suggest a few ideas to the product management team. Try to get into a writing culture. Try to get into a culture where you take the first steps and involve people eventually. And let's say they're not hearing your idea when you're trying to suggest that. Write it down as a doc. Write everything that you eventually think about that idea and why you think this would particularly work, and then share it with them, and then try to set up a meeting or try to eventually set them into the whole process of your ideation. When you think and you say, this is my idea, people cannot visually see it, but you can put it down and then tell them, say, this is why I think, and always give people the benefit of how this would help them. If you're talking, let's say, to a customer support person, you can always tell them, see, this reduces your time in talking to the customer by probably like 30 minutes, because this is how I'm simplifying the whole feature working for you. Then that is where they get the incentive, right? If you're just telling them, hey, I have this idea and I think this product is going to work, why would I want to listen to you amidst my busy schedule? When you're talking to an engineer, try to say that And see, there are a lot of times you might not understand. In one of the recent times, a friend of mine runs this question for product manager series, if you know Sanjeev, so on Twitter. So one of his questions initially was, see, I always have good ideas, but when I bounce it off with my engineers and my senior product managers, they often tell me, no, this is not possible, or no, this is something we cannot take it forward. Of course, for somebody who's so passionate about bringing these ideas to life, it might be a bit of a bumper for you, because you might be like, oh my God, I have so many ideas, but why is it getting rejected? So this involves a lot of first level thinking, where you see if this matches with your vision of the product. Because as a product management person, you would have worked with your leaders in terms of strategizing the whole vision. Where should the product go? And the secondary thing is, have you tried speaking around with people in justifying why you think? And then if you don't still understand, you can always be open to them. You can ask your engineer, oh, this is what I understand from what you say, but is there something else that I'm missing out? So a lot of these is also around wordplay and communication, so which you will eventually get as a part of the role. So yeah, if this helps for you. I see Daryl has a question as well.
Great.
Yeah.
And I have like you talked about communication. Often, there are people who like written communication. There are people who don't like written communication. Even if you have written it in detail, they don't follow it. So how do you get beyond this challenge?
Got it. Okay. So that's again a great question. In fact, this is a very recent, I think Daryl has a question. Daryl, I'll get to it after answering this. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that I have in the recent times been wondering, because see, when you start out in the product management, or rather in the product space, and Twitter could always be of a great help, but also that when you see there are certain norms, like Krishna was saying earlier, the best practices, the terminologies to be used, I realized that most of these are what people said. Sometimes you don't have to have so much of a dictionary terminology to know what you should be doing in a particular role, because your team is different from a team that probably works in a big co, or probably works in an early stage startup. So this another thing around this writing culture is, I think most of them who enter into product management talk a lot about product requirements document, the PRD that everybody keeps talking about. But see, there are multiple aspects to this. Amazon believes in the whole press release, the PR kind of an article, where when they start with a product, they always think, how would you launch it as a PR? And then reverse engineer. There is Facebook that uses a one-pager thing, where they just say, what is the problem? Who are the stakeholders? What are the solutions are we building for this? And that's it. It's just a one-pager PRD. Versus some XYZ company that might use 6 pages of PRDs. So this itself shows you that at the end of the day, it's not about what is a fancy template that you're picking, or what is the most stylish PRD that you can ever pick as a template, because tomorrow if that's not going to resonate with your engineers, with your designers, who are asking you, oh my God, what have you done? I don't understand anything in this. There's no point in you spending so many days in working on the PRD. So the shortest answer to this question is, do what really works with your team. So honestly, for me, that is what I was trying to figure out. So I, in fact, transitioned to the team all in remote. So I have, in fact, not seen my engineers or my designers who I work with on a daily basis. So this has been more a distributed work nature for me as well. And I spent the first couple of those coffee chats or those conversations that I had with them in understanding what is each of their communication style like. For example, who prefers a verbal talk over, who prefers a written communication over, what is necessary for the team at the end of the day. For example, if there's an engineer that I talk to who actually prefers talking to me in calls and wanting to clear those questions in calls, I clear it for them, or we have a conversation on, okay, this is the best thing that we could do. But at the end of the day, I also ensure that for others to understand, I document it. And I document it in a way that my team understands, not choosing a particular template that I feel like, oh, this is the most fancy template that everybody is using, or this is the most, the amazing PRD that somebody's taken. If a PRD concept does not work in your team, don't do it. Do it in a way that probably it works for your team. If you want to maintain a log of your bugs, do it. Not every team wants to go and put it inside Jira, right? Not every team wants to go and put it inside a particular tool because it works for another organization. So there was an interesting Marty Cousins article as well on this. I would probably share it with Krishna later, and he can probably share it with you people. And for those of you who know Marty Cousins, he's one of the product management gurus in the space, and he was rightly pointing it out as to why is PRD or any such terminology called an artifact, because it's not that every team has to follow a particular structure or a particular style in it. If a PRD just involves one page for you, do it. If a PRD involves documenting it visually like a whole whiteboarding thing, do it. It's based on how it works with your immediate team members. So I would, so in my case, I spend a lot of time trying to understand what is the immediate people that I get to work with every day, what is their working nature like, what is their communication style like, and then I try to blend in all of that to see what best I could do as a team. So now I do a couple of like the whole documentation thing, but in a way that suits my team. And I do a whole lot of talking every day, but in a way that suits my team. And at the end of the day, I try to blend in both to ensure that the whole team stays aligned in terms of communication. So I hope that helped. Thanks for the question.
Hey, David, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. This is for someone who's transitioning new to or transition to product management and is new, right, to this role. My question is, how does such a person try to build the credibility with the team? Say it could be with the designers or developers. What are some things which?
Okay, this is me. This is me when I transitioned. So I very much consider myself pretty new to this space, and I'm exploring a lot in terms of learning. So the biggest point is, if you've transitioned, amazing, congrats. And I think every day is going to be a lot of learning for you. So I'm pretty excited when you said that you've transitioned into that space. So in terms of credibility, it's actually a good question. And this is something that I figured out a path by myself. And there was my manager who was trying to tell me something which hit a lot with me. So coming to the first part, I know this could sound as a bit cliche, but again, this involves a lot more communication, but not communication for the sake of it, but the way that you do. For example, now all of us are all distributed. All of us are working in distributed teams, and audio communication is such that, or rather even texting or typing is such that what you intend could be perceived in a lot of different ways by different people. So always ensuring that whatever you want to convey, like I said initially, product management is something that involves co-creation. It's collaboration and co-creation, and it's never autonomy. It doesn't mean that you do not get to make decisions, but what I mean is, it's not you who's the sole authority to take those decisions. You arrive at those decisions eventually only by working together with people who in turn give you more context. So you're like this idea machine that has idea, but execution is primary, because only then the idea has value, and that execution happens only when you can co-create, only when you have other people chiming in their effort into the whole execution. So the first step that I learned in terms of building credibility is always in terms of the distributed team working, be a little over communicative is fine. As in, whenever you explain your idea, always give context on what made you arrive at that. Share your whole visual thinking with somebody. Let's say you're sitting with a designer and you want a particular feature to be done. Let's say this is going to be, I don't know, like building a whole message board. Don't tell them, hey, you know what? I was thinking about this idea of building a message board, so I thought I'll reach out to you. You let me know what you think is the best possible thing to do. Give me a design, and I'll we can move forward. That is one, probably that is a way of the whole autonomy in product management. But rather, when you're talking to the designer, giving them the idea, try to give a bit of a context on how is this fitting in the whole product theme. For example, they need to know who's the target audience. They need to know what is the product vision. So some of your work, some days you would feel like you're iterating the same things again and again. You're like every day trying to align people towards, hey, this is what we want to do with the product. This is where we want to go with the product. And this is the whole vision and the ideology that we have. So now coming to your work, this is what I thought that we both could work on. So your particular piece of work will align with this whole mission in this way. When you always give a context to people about how the simplest of things that they do can actually align with the whole product and how the customer would view that particular feature, this always works in terms of credibility, because you're not telling them, or not, you're not giving them a very narrowed picture of what they have to do, but you're telling them how their work fits as a piece in the bigger puzzle towards probably getting this product out and launching it. And feel free to have discussions around like, hey, this is what I was thinking in the long term, and I thought some of your designs could help here. Or when you're talking to the engineer, try to understand what are the everyday struggles that they go through. Like, just tell them, hey, I see that the build is taking a lot of time. Why is it so? Is the production stopped because of a particular thing? I thought I can understand some of these hindrances, and from the next time we can see what best we could do. So these are some ways probably you get to their language and you get to talking to them from their context. And it's not always you putting your ideas onto them without giving them a whole picture of how to see your ideas from your viewpoint. So that's something that I would say as one of the first steps in building credibility. And when you eventually do this, they start believing in you. So they start asking you questions. They start coming to you when they think they want to work on something new. So let's say they have a particular new idea. They eventually ping you and say, hey, Daryl, I had this idea. I thought I can actually bounce it off with you because the last time we spoke, there was a lot of clarity. There was a lot of co-creation that we did. And you don't have to call them next time. You don't have to like you don't have to go always to them next time, because eventually when you set that path, there's a mutual understanding between both the roles, or whatever the couple of roles involved in the team. So it doesn't become a bit of the whole managing, but it becomes more of a collaboration. So same thing that even my lead told me when I was initially transitioning, and I was trying to understand a lot of these people and their kind of work, because I was also remote and they were also remote and all that. So one of the key pieces is that you, and this is pretty cliched that you must have heard, but when it comes to every team, it really works in the way that it works for your team. This role is a lot about influence. Influence is not going and saying, let's do this, or this is what I want you to do. But influence is a lot about, hey, if we do this together, I think the success would be there, or this would come out to be good. So how do you get people to naturally come and share things with you without it sounding, or without it seeming like you're taking charge of their work or you're taking control of their work? That is a lot about building credibility and having a good team that believes in each other's works. I hope this answered your question.
It did. Thanks for that.
Yeah, Parimal has a question. Yes.
Yeah, we have two people asking, so we'll start off with Parimal.
Hi guys. Just to before asking my question, I would like to give my introduction in a short. So basically, I'm a mechanical engineer and worked in as a mechanical engineer for 3 years. Then I did my MBA marketing and currently working as a B2B marketer in a steel company. And I'm trying to explore like how can I make a transition in product marketing, product management, such kind of roles. So my question is like I've been talking to a lot of people. What will be the possible approach to make a transition? So few people are suggesting me that the transition should be I should immediately. I have only 3 months of experience as a marketing role. I'm a recent MBA pass out. So some people are suggesting me like immediately I should make a switch into IT in any role, entry level low for management folk, and then I should build my skills and explore this space and either internally switch or externally switch. And some people also suggest me that rather than like diversifying the focus, just focus on what kind of roles you want to get in, prepare yourself. It may take some time, but to counter that, I'm also afraid of the fact that if I spend too much of time in my current company, so when I will try to make a transition, whether SaaS or IT company will be happy to absorb me, because I do not have any kind of IT experience. I'm sorry if I have asked out of context question, but any insights on this will be really helpful for me.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that question. It's I wouldn't say it's out of context. It's something that I mean, probably blends into the whole how do you enter into product or SaaS sort of a thing. See, on this, see, when it comes to your career and your particular job role, I think you are the best person in terms of taking charge. But what I could tell you from this is the reason that some of them tell you to look for an internal transition is that when you want to start at a particular role, I'm not saying it's very easy, but it's quite easier for you to convince people who are there in your company because some of them must have seen your work. So in terms of showing your work visually and trying to tell, hey, this is what I can do as a part of this role. And that said, you have to always vouch for your work. So that's important part of any role in SaaS, any role in product. It's you should always be able to show your work to people, and that's given. So that's why people prefer or people eventually advise in terms of think of an internal transition and then getting some experience in this field, you can always move to an external company. So definitely that is something that you can try. But I know that you said you're in a steel company, which is not an IT space. But here I would probably tell you to think a lot in terms of what makes you want to enter into SaaS. Because see, I think even Krishna mentioned this at the start, and this is something that I would say upon my learning of being in this space is that you have to have a reason about why you feel like this is a space that drives you. You can have people suggest you a lot of industries, and you can take up a job role in any industry that you want. But eventually, the role that you do, the industry that you are in, all of this will have to tie back to what makes you want to do work on an everyday basis, right? It's coming to the same question of, is this role fancy? Yes. Would I want to do it? No. If that's the thing, then there's no point in that role being fancy, right? That will stay fancy or whatever. But if you don't have a drive for wanting to do that, then it's not going to be all simple after 1 week of reveling in that fanciness. So the same case goes with this. If you're somebody who's looking out to be in SaaS, I think communities like All Things SaaS, or there's Next Stop, there's a lot of these communities online that can actually help you jumpstart. It's never that difficult to enter into SaaS, just that you always have to show a bit of why do you want to enter into this space. That's always natural, right? When you're moving from one role to another role itself, there's going to be a lot of question on why do you think that your work would be more appreciated here, or you think you have skills or potential to do this. The same thing goes with entering into the SaaS space as well. So if you think that you really enjoy being in that space and you think you have a good scope here, it's always never too late to enter into a role and figure out which part of the product space, the product role suits you better. Like if you're somebody who enjoys marketing and you feel like, yeah, being into product marketing is something that can help me take things forward, then you can always try to justify or show how your current experiences can actually map. See, it's not a question about, oh, I was in a different field and I think I don't have enough skills to show it to the new field that I enter into. The whole talent or the whole potential lies in how you're able to map what you did there and justify that some of what you did there is actually the same skills that you would need here, or the same things that you can transition here and do as a part of being into SaaS product marketing. So if you can map a complete picture and try to tell that during interviews or during those catch-ups and networking phases with people, I think that should pretty much help you transition to a role. Did it answer your question?
Yes, pretty much. Thank you, Aishwarya.
Thanks for the question. There's a question that I think Balakrishna has asked in chat.
Yeah, let me just read it out, Aishwarya. So how do you manage conflict where the team doesn't agree to your conclusions, where a lot of time is lost in getting everybody on board?
Yeah, that's a great question again. Yeah, honestly, it's all not rosy, right? This is a part of every role, every team, that what you say sometimes, what you think, what everybody thinks is not in the same line. It's not aligned on the same plane. That there leads to a lot of discussions, a lot of conflicts. But see, again, I would try to call in a bit of the whole team culture part of it here, because you could still have conflicts But at the end of the day, everybody gets to do what is the best thing that you could do to the product or you could do to the team. Okay, let me explain this. For example, let's say that a product has a particular potential. It can be built on a larger scale, but just because there are like internally people not agreeing to it, or there is not agreeing to it, I'm saying not from technical standpoint, but because there's ego, because there's more like, no, I don't think I don't think that this product can go to that state, but without any justifications to it, then it means you're killing the product. It means you do not have enough justifications and you're going with the whole people politics. And like, let's say somebody says, no, this product is already there and this is a competitor to this product, why do you want to build this? It's not enough justification to it, right? So if you're knowingly killing a particular potential of a product just because people's egos or people's opinions are not anything because of technical constraints, or it's not in the same line of a product's vision, then it's pretty much a people thing, and that's something that the team culture has to solve for. So that has to be seriously taken at a team level, and you'll have to sit and think through, how would you want to proceed in terms of getting this on board. But let's say there's a particular simple thing, there's a feature that you have proposed and you have done enough research for, but you think that this would add value. But let's say that your engineer is not on board. They're saying that, no, we don't have time for this, and this is not something that we can do. Then that is something that that's again a conflict, but that conflict is more around what is the best for the product. So if you say this feature is well and important, you should have had a prior research on how does it map with an overall mission or the vision. And some people call it the North Star metric, and that depends on team to team. Let's say you have a particular North Star metric for the team, and this particular feature is nice to have, but it's not seriously aligning with that North Star metric. And you have a particular team of engineers who can only take so much of an effort at that point in time, then prioritizing that in the pipeline is not going to work. So that is where you get to use a lot of your common sense in terms of, okay, I know this is a nice to have, but it's not the right time for me to pitch this. And you also let others know about it. You discuss the feature with your engineer, telling them that, hey, this is something that I have in mind. What do you think? But I understand that this cannot have a particular resource at this point in time. So why not I put this in the roadmap and let's take it later? So that is the eventual tying it back to the co-creation that we were discussing. You always keep everybody informed, and you try to take this only when the right time comes in. Most of the other conflicts is only when like you say something and you know from the end of your conversation with the designer or with the developer, this cannot work, and you have a valid reason for which it cannot work. It is frustrating, but there is something that you should compromise in terms of the amount of resources and the amount of effort that you have in the team. So those compromises are going to be most an everyday thing, and mostly those compromises revolve around deadlines, trying to take a particular set of things like features or bug fixes up in a particular timeline. So this could be quite controversial, but I would also say great like products, sometimes you cannot go a lot by deadlines because deadlines do tend to get missed. So that is not bad, that is not wrong. It is frustrating, I'm not denying, but it does take a few misses of the deadlines if you want to get eventually at something better. And this is not a vouching thought or something that I go through. I've seen a few of my friends go through as a part of this role, as part of working with the team. So that's the eventual crux of it. So conflicts are of multiple kinds, like trailing back, conflict because of people's thinking, people ego, conflict because of not aligning with the product vision, conflict because you are not able to agree or you're not able to understand. Sometimes that's all. It's just simply saying, I do not understand. Can you make me understand it? Can you simplify it for me? Works a lot better. It also cuts down a lot of those, like Balakrishna has asked, a lot of time in getting the time getting lost in terms of discussing the same things. When you just eventually admit that you don't know something, when you cannot understand it fully, then you get to get the context. I think that's the best. So conflicts of different kinds, and highly depends on the team and yeah, the multiple other aspects of it. Did it answer Balakrishna?
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the questions. I think all of your questions were pretty interesting and something that I've also like been learning my way through it now. So yeah, thanks. They were spot on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. Mukul, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I think also reiterating on the start that I like Krishna was telling me that some of you are involves as to what do you want to do as a part of being the space. So like do a lot of self-reflection. Don't get into a role because it is fancy, because somebody tells you that this is the best or this is something that's popular now and something that you have to enter into. Try to see if it's something that you can contribute and something that interests you because you get to work in it every day. So don't pick a product marketer role because somebody says marketing is fancy, or don't pick a product manager's role because somebody says that's what is getting highly paid for, or that's not like, that's what is like where you can show your decision making skills. No, it's not autonomy.
Right. Yeah, actually, thank you so much for emphasizing on this aspect as many times as you have done, right? So I don't think we really hear this from whatever we hear from LinkedIn or Twitter. It's mostly about, again, it feels like I keep beating on the same thing, but it's just a fanciness around product management. But you see, the bores and monotonies of it, which may not be for everyone, doesn't really get talked about.
And
right?
sometimes you don't have to be in the role. Like I said, you could still be in a different role, but you could actually use the mindset. So for me, that was pretty much the learning. For me, I happened to be in the role because I eventually started thinking in that mindset, and I was then able to figure out that, oh, this is a role, and I can actually like, this is something that I can put my skills to use. So a lot of it in SaaS, especially looking at the current startup ecosystem, looking at the current the like SaaS has always been there, but now there's a lot more focus. There's the funding in terms of SaaS startups is also like skyrocketed. So considering a lot of these things, yes, SaaS is definitely up and running now, but the mindset is a lot about what you get to do in the role. So you could still not be in a product manager's role or product management role. You could still not be in a customer success role. You could still not be in a product marketing role. But nothing stops you from thinking in that mindset if you're interested. If you're interested, that's the main part there. If you eventually get interested, then always try to have a proof on why you're getting interested. Like you see, all of us are great. All of us have enough great ideas. I believe in the fact that all of us are creative, but who gets to show it? That's what matters now. So when you say that you want to enter into a particular role, I think Parimal also had the same question. How do I like transition? So when you have this, when you're in a different industry trying to get into the industry, nobody's stopping you from doing that. But how do you project that some of the work that you did there can actually come off help here also? How do you project that what skills you have can actually map and make more sense for the team, for the company's perspective? That's all matters here. So as long as you have interest, you've done enough work even before you've taken up that role to show that you can justify for that role, I think then like there are more opportunities for you to take up. And I think Mukul has also asked on the product marketing, product management. I think Mukul, we did cover that in the initial part of the session. So yeah, reiterating that again. So this alignment comes a lot from, see, I've been a product marketer earlier, and now the role that I'm in, I get to do both product building and I also get to do the whole growth and marketing perspective of it. So the alignment pretty much lies in terms of how does somebody want to look at the role. So initially I was saying how a lot of startups today want to hire on product marketing, but the founder does not know why are they hiring a product marketer or what does product marketing do for the company. B, even if they don't have a knowledge, they should at least be trusting in the person who they've hired in terms of product marketing. When you cannot do both, then you're basically wasting the person's skills, right? So product marketing is important that just as how somebody understands product management is the core to building product, you should also understand that product marketing is something that can do as a bridge to take your product to the customer. So if you don't have, and this you by which I mean, if the startups or the founders or even the senior managers in the team do not have a fair idea of what a customer success team can do or what a product marketing team can do, it's highly difficult to get in alignment in terms of the whole objectives, goals, and all of that to be achieved. So the first thing to probably get corrected in the team is making people understand that this is the importance of the role. It could be any role. This is the importance of the role, and coming to an alignment there. And like I said, product management is not taking decisions. It is not about saying, yeah, this is what is to be built. Go and build it. It's not that. So obviously you have to talk to marketers, designers, engineers. If your product, this is early stage product I'm speaking. If it's a product that's matured and out, you have to talk to your customer success, the support executives, your sales folks, your BDs, all of these people. So it's a lot about stakeholders and it's a lot about communicating, not because you want to show your influence, because their ideas will shape your idea. That's the whole crux of it. Oh, so somebody's asked about one good thing. Yeah, Arvind. So any questions before that from the product angle, or do you want me to go to this?
Actually, I did have one question though.
Okay, so I'll go to this.
Yeah, Anthony, go ahead.
If there's any other question, I can take it in between. So yeah, so one good thing was a pretty okay.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Cool. Okay.
So I had a question regarding products. So just to give a bit of context, I'm still in my UG, so I'm still a student. So I'm not that familiar with how teams in a company really work, like how they're structured. So like knowing that a product manager has so many stakeholders within and outside the company, and they have to deal with a lot of people internally. So I want to know like how typical product team in like a company like Zoho is like structured, and like how much the roles interlap with the different departments you're working with those different stakeholders you're interacting with.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, so again, how does a typical team structure look like? It actually depends on a lot of factors. So, and it also depends on what type of a company it is, whether it's a bootstrap, whether it's a VC funded startup, or whether it's a big corporation. The roles and the number of people in those roles will vary accordingly. For example, in certain companies, product marketing can involve probably channel marketing, content marketing, partner marketing, all of these together. But there are also companies that have independent roles and independent people working in these roles. So marketing as a whole can be split into a lot of these roles. Likewise, in terms of product management as well, there could be like program managers, there could be product managers, there could be project managers. So within a product company, you could have program managers. So program managers or program management would be handling a particular objective of the product. Let's say if the product is all about sending messages, it's a messaging app. Program management would be how to implement this messaging app for probably a country like Brazil. So it's a narrowed down scope of that particular building products. And it's so why do they call it a program is that it has an objective and it has a goal. So people working in that team would eventually get back to the product management and the rest of the team in terms of communicating what did they observe as a part of executing this particular problem statement or executing this particular objective that is a part of the product. It's not building of the product, but it is actually after you build the product, what is the objective that you set from the product and how do you tie it back to the product. Likewise, is growth marketing. Growth marketing is you run experiments to make optimizations to the product. Let's say the product is not having a great sign up. Then you try to set up your growth marketing team, tell them that, hey, we want to run this particular experiments to push more signups in India region or to push more signups from the EU region. So in a typical level, you have the design team. It can have interface designers who design the product. It can have graphic designers who work with marketers. There's product marketing team or rather marketing team that has product marketers, partner marketers, channel marketers, content marketers. There's probably sales team, and the sales team will be geographically aligned based on how big a corporation it is, or it could be just inbound sales people. Mostly for SaaS, it's inbound sales, but there are also companies that do outbound sales, which is field sales or field marketing also, which is not inbound, but you go and meet people outside, you go and get customers from outside and not using any of those online tools for it. So outbound can be one aspect of it. There is a business development team that usually is for matured products. It's not for early products. Early product is when you know the problem statement and you're building. For building the problem statement, you pretty much need the product management team, engineering team, marketing team, and design team. Beyond that, you of course need the business development, sales. You would need your customer support team. Customer support is different from customer success. So customer support is when you handle the queries that you get from the customers and trying to help them understand how best to navigate through the product. Customer success is ensuring these people stick to you month after month, day after day. And for them, it's all about numbers. How much is the ARR? How much is the annual recurring revenue? How much is the monthly recurring revenue? How much is it providing as a revenue to the product, to the entire company? So for them, it's about making those customers stick to the product and take them, in the life cycle month after month, year after year. So depending on whether it's a small company to a large company, the teams that you get to work with is just going to expand. You don't have to do, when you're in a particular role, it's not that you get to talk to everybody and you have to take a decision. There are different points in time you get to talk to people. And when you're talking to those people, you can do. For example, if you're a product manager who's building a new product, you get to work with the legal team a lot because you have to figure out what is the legal constraints in the product that you're building. If it involves GDPR regulations, if it involves any other regulations, let's say if you're building a product that is to work in India, you have to go with the Indian regulatory systems. So you might have to work with the legal team. That doesn't mean that you work with the legal team every day. There's a particular period in time that you work with the legal team. So the stakeholders, like you asked, depends on what part of the product that you're dealing with at that point in time. But like I said, multiple SaaS roles are there. Depends on which stage of the company you enter into, which team you enter into, and what stage of the product it has. I hope that was like giving you some insight into it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was really comprehensive.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, when you have to pick out, yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry.
Sure. Sorry, like you please continue. I'll ask the question.
No. I was just continuing to end that question saying that which part or which role you want to get into depends a lot. So usually some people prefer starting their whole career in startups where a lot of it is let's figure it out on the way and let's take things up as we work. In big companies, it's going to be set and like paths to do. So it depends on what kind of a person and how would you want. In my case, I started with a team that probably I was into product marketing, which did not involve probably those. I mean, we didn't have independent roles like partner marketers, channel marketers. So I got to do all of those together in product marketing. And now when I transition to product management, it's an early stage product. So I get to do the whole building the vision, trying to talk to people. So as early as you can get or as late as you can get is your decision at the end of the day.
Hi Aishwarya, this is Varsha again. So I have a question related to the product launch. So like our company is mostly a mortgage servicing company, and they are transitioning into a SaaS-based company. So like the our product, the product which I'm working on, is ready to get into the market, but the corporate vision is something corporate vision is like building like a group of products and then launching it into the market. So like, how would you go about it? Since the like, would you go with the corporate vision, or you would you go with the product vision? Like, since the product is good enough to get into the market, so how would you go about it?
Okay. So yeah, I think this is honestly that comes as a part of big course. So definitely that sometimes there is the product, like you mentioned, the whole product team takes a decision versus the whole the larger company vision that has a different thing. The answer to this might sound simple, but this is from my observation. But I also think a lot of this depends on the willingness of the team and the willingness of the company at the larger level. And even big companies cannot get it right most often. It's a matter of trial and error. It's a matter of like probably understanding that you failed at it and trying to rectify it for the next time. So in this context, since you told me that you have enough validation on why this product is ready to enter into the market now, it's important that you or your immediate team, the whole team representation, gets to understand why is it that the company is trying to say that they have to take it as a group of products. For example, if it's a MarTech market, so the MarTech, which is marketing technology landscape currently, is pretty competitive. So you cannot launch a simple product and expect the people, the users of MarTech landscape to be okay with it, like to just use it because the marketing and the sales need is going a lot. So when you're in the product management for a MarTech product, there are a lot of things that you need to consider. Likewise, when you're building for probably a social networking app, that might be a different. So for example, in a social networking app, you can just build the app and launch the app. There's not much context of, oh, this has to go along with a couple of products together for it to have a better market fit. So in that case, you don't have to think that. But in your case, you're saying specifically that your company wants to launch it as a bundle of apps. Try to understand why should it go as a bundle of apps. If you think your product is actually solving for most of the product need, because this ties back to what is the problem statement that you're building for, right? Not with respect to the product level alone, but with what you mentioned as a company level. So if the larger problem statement that your company currently has, 60% of that or 70% of that, if your current product that you're in itself is solving, then you can take that as a probably hypothesis that you can tell that to your manager, and probably all of you together can try to talk that out to the companies, whoever is the stakeholder there. Try to understand why are they thinking that something has to go in terms of a bundle for it to be received well in the audience. So yeah, that is something that I would suggest that you can do.
Thank you so much, Aishwarya, for clearing my doubt.
Yeah, like I said, in this case, the decision is not about A or B. You got to like speak it out. You got to understand both sides here. So yeah. Yes. So getting back to somebody who asked me about one good thing, and I keep that as a last question, and maybe one if Mugil has asked one more thing, I think maybe I'll wrap it up with both of these.
Yeah, I think we can take Mukil's question first, and then at last, one good thing is a nice way to wrap up the chat as well, I guess. So let me just read out Mukil's question here. As the company moves up market, the product would require changes to fit the needs of the new ICPs. How would the product management team go about figuring this out?
Okay. So in this aspect, I think that you could do two things mainly. One is, of course, the market is going to keep changing, and of course, you will have a lot of different ICPs to consider. This ties back to, more than addressing this from people's point of view, that is from whether it should be product marketing or product management, I'm trying to think it more from, is that change in ICP something that relates with your problem statement of the product? For example, if you're building a product that could be many things for many people, it's great, it's good. But if you launch with many things for many people, it could be nothing for nobody. So it's important that you narrow it down initially to a particular set of ICPs and you start at it. But let's say down the line, those ICPs have actually used the product really well and it's going amazing and you have great revenue, you have great retention. Then there is a bit of, like a bias you tend to have, say that, yeah, I'm kind of quite satisfied. This product is doing well. I'm having whatever I need in terms of revenue and retention. But then there's a possibility of new ICP. Now it's important that before you jump on to whether you have to figure this out in terms of ICPs, I would say figure first in terms of whether it would suit the current nature of the product. Because most often what happens is you might build the product with certain things in mind, and some people might start using it incidentally. And like, see, let's take the example of Notion. I'm not saying Notion is not intended to do a certain things, but the way that people adapted to Notion made those people realize that there's actually a separate thing, that a separate not really an ICP, but a separate a platform that they could think of, which is the whole API perspective to Notion. So until then, they didn't have the whole API. They found that creators were using Notion for more than what these people thought, more than even thinking that just the basic templates would be used for. People started using it for a lot of other things, to manage their personal lives, to manage their official lives, both professional and personal parts of it blended. So now Notion is investing a lot on building their APIs very well, so that they can have platform partners. They can have partners who can use Notion's API to build on something great, to build a layer of platform over Notion's API platform. So that is a different ICP. Had Notion thought, did they do it as a part of the current product? Not really. They brought it as a very affiliate thing to the current product. They brought it as a very another part of what they have in the current functioning product. So it's important that you understand, do those new ICPs when you add them to the existing product, does it make sense for the product to continue as it is, or thinking about it from a lateral perspective for solving for those ICPs would make sense. So that's something that will involve not just you. Of course, you need your managers, their managers, and the whole, until the CEO of the company. So it's a thing that you got to like discuss with them. But yeah, this is how you should go about. At the end of the day, it's understanding how much good or bad it does to the product, more than why you think that this would be profitable. You have to consider both the product considerations and the business considerations, because somebody who's out of product might think, your CEO might think only from a business perspective. Your senior product manager might think only from a product perspective. But somewhere it has to be a trade-off between these two, right? So at the end of the day, you have to think if it makes sense to consider or figure out those ICPs as a part of current product, or building it as a part of a lateral thing to the product. So Mukul, did this help? Cool. Okay. So yeah, do you want to wrap it, Krishna? Or any other questions?
Yeah, Aishwarya. Was somebody about to ask something?
Oh yeah, for somebody who asked about, I think there was Arvind, I think, who asked about one good thing. So yeah, just touching very quickly on that.
No, feel free to be as elaborate as you want to. I think we can wrap with that. So I think no code tool building in itself is probably something you can do a whole webinar on. So just spend as much time as you want on that, and we'll wrap up with that.
Yeah, so on one good thing front, so one good thing was a combination of two things. One is I was pretty interested, or rather I have a tendency to make small goals for myself every year. So one such goal was to explore no code tools, and I'm usually a sucker for any tool. I love exploring products. So no code was one such thing that I wanted to just play around with the start of this year, and that's when we had the whole second wave of the COVID, and there were a lot of negativity, there were a lot of exhaustion. There are days that I remember you used to hear colleagues were not well, colleagues' families are not well, you've lost somebody dear to you or your extended family. And it was pretty much very exhausting to continuously deal with this news, media, what's happening around you. So this was a time that I was dedicating to exploring these tools just to take my mind off from all of this. And that's when I also used to deal with some of this negativity every day with doing small things that gives me like just fun and joy. Some of my friends, my closest friends, used to do that along with me. And slowly they also started enjoying it. Then I was like, okay, why don't we try to make this as a tool? So everybody gets to see some good ideas that they can try every day. So that's how one good thing came up. So the idea is simple. It lets you discover, I built it like a randomizer that lets you discover one good thing that you can do for the day and feel happy about. So the days that you're very exhausted and you need some motivation, these are things that could help you find that joy and motivation. So yeah, so building it was not, building it for me was playing around with these tools and all that, but distribution was something that was more primary. So I started ensuring that people from different communities on Product Hunt, Women Make, indie hackers, all of these communities, people started, like, I wanted them to see so that people can start using this on a daily basis. So Product Hunt was really like a place where I found most of them resonated with this idea. And of course, yeah, I was so glad when Product Hunt featured the app, and a lot of people started like using this. So it was pretty fun to see how a little idea can go a long way in terms of like getting people relate with it. And that teaches you a lot about building larger products as well, because it boils down to this simple concept: how much of a benefit does it give them? How much do they think that it helps them? So yeah, that's in a nutshell what one good thing was all about. So yeah, thanks to Krishna for sharing those links.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Aishwarya. I think I feel like I tell this every time that I interact with her, but she just has this habit of turning even the most random conversations into super insightful ones. And needless to say, I'm pretty sure that is how we all felt with this chat as well. So I'll drop in links to Aishwarya's LinkedIn or Twitter, where she's very active. If you want to just connect with her and follow up on.
For sure. Feel free to reach out to me. I would be happy to chat, and happy to help in whatever little ways possible, and happy to learn from all of you.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Anything you want to say before we close the session?
Yeah, no, I think thanks a lot for you and Mukil to have me here. It's amazing, and I think see, I'm somebody who believes in the fact that if you are wanting to explore SaaS, and you have the right network, you have the right set of people around you to help you on board, to help you get started, it's the best. So I'm glad that Mukil and Krishna are doing this initiative as a part of All Things SaaS. So I wish all the best to all of you. And yeah, if there's anything that you want to do in SaaS, and if you want to like reach out to me for any help, happy to answer. And yeah, please find your set of people that you stick to, and yeah, always keep them as sounding boards with you, and always you can learn from them, and ensure that whatever you learn, you share it with others. That's the crux. So yeah, thanks Mukil, thanks Krishna.
Yeah, take care everyone. Have a great weekend ahead. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning. Thank you once again, Aishwarya.
Thanks everybody for joining. Have a good rest of the weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.